thought about meal planning. And meal planning has been a big topic of late, like this meal prep videos and all kinds of things. But I don't know, from the way I grew up and way I do things, a lot of times meal planning doesn't cut it for me. A lot of times I just do things on the fly. Sometimes I'm just starting out and I'm not even sure what I'm going to finish with until I'm actually done with cooking, because I'm just like doing things on the fly and it could be anything. So, what does like meal planning look to you? Do you guys do meal planning? How does it work out in your household?
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one, so I don't have to feel bad. Yeah, sometimes, like I said, because that curry base I use is so flexible,
Yeah,
I just make the curry base, and while the curry base is making the first 5-10 minutes, that's when I actually think about what I actually want to make,
yes, yeah,
and then I'm like, okay, what's in the fridge? What do I have to eat in the next few days, or what did I eat before? What nutrients do we need and things like that. So yeah, I very much do the same thing. We don't meal plan. It seems like too much effort
yeah,
sometimes, and also it doesn't work necessarily very well with Indian food, where um, you know sometimes if you're making different cuisines, you could meal plan for the week and actually make the meals and then put them in the fridge. I don't think that works super well with curry. It's
yeah,
debatable. I mean, there are ways to make it work, but I prefer to make the curry fresh. So yeah, usually
yeah.
fly by the seat of my pants. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you mentioned different cuisines, right? So obviously you love Mexican and other cuisines that you just mentioned.
yeah.
So what was your introduction to these cuisines like? Like, were you always interested in trying out? Because some of the viewers that we have here are probably like interested in exploring different cultures and cuisines, but maybe a little apprehensive because they don't know what to expect out of it, right? As someone who
Right.
tried different cuisines and lived in different kinds of worlds in when it comes to cuisine, what are some of the ways, I guess, in which you that helped you explore?
Yeah, yeah. So I think there's two main ways, um, and for those viewers, maybe one of them will be more applicable. But one of the ways that I was able to explore was through friends from different
Hmm.
cultures. And so, if you go over to someone's house and they make something that's not American but also not Indian, then I'm learning something new
Yeah.
about their culture. And I think it's pretty easy to see a lot of parallels between Mexican and Indian foods.
Hmm.
I've talked about it a lot with some of my Hispanic friends, and things like dal versus
Beans.
beans and
Yeah.
tortillas and chapatis, and the spices, the spice levels, the spice
Yeah.
tolerance, the use of onion,
Hmm.
the way it's used and the way it's cooked, and yeah, some of the sauces versus curries.
Right.
There's so many parallels. So that was just kind of a natural one, both from friends and from the second way, which is restaurants.
Hmm.
Um, and so I would say for most of your viewers, restaurants is the easier barrier to entry. I mean, if if they had friends that they could have learned from, they probably would have already, right? So
Yes.
restaurants would be the easiest way, and if you live in an area that has a lot of different types of restaurants, that's nice. But of course, it can be hard if you live in an area that doesn't have those types of restaurants.
Right. And that's where normally really comes in too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if you don't really
exactly.
have access to those restaurants and trying
Yep.
all these flavors, normally is able to help you explore all these flavors. And Srinath, so sounds like you've definitely put thought into like, the parallels between cultures and food and cuisine. So definitely comes off to me personally like food is more than food to you, right? It must be
Yes.
an experience and a different level of relationship with food than just as something that provides nutrition to your body. Tell me what it means to you.
Oh man, that's I could write a book about that. But yeah, if I had to give you the podcast answer, it would be food food means family and love and community to me.
Yes.
Those are the three main things. Um, Family and love, it starts with the family unit, and as an immigrant, especially an immigrant in a city that doesn't have a lot of immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
the family unit is kind of your security blanket. It's like
Yes.
your little safe space, and sometimes it is a very little safe space. And
Yes.
so within that space you can express yourself through your food and through
Yes.
other things, and food is one of the great connectors there, and it sustains you, and it keeps you, keeps you going through the tough times and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And with love and with community, food is a great way to bridge community, like we've talked about before,
Yeah.
between cultures or between people of the same culture. Either way, food is just a great way to get to know people, to make friendships, to not have people around you be strangers, right? Um,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
just invite them over and have some food, and all of a sudden, you're very good friends, right?
Yes.
It solves a lot of problems in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Food is just an amazing connector to me.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And as we talk more about food and culture, it also comes with travel too, right? Like sometimes food is a way for you to experience different parts of the world, even without physically going and traveling to these places. You just end up learning so much about them. In your experience of trying so many different cuisines and stuff, like what is your personal favorite when it comes to like cuisine and somewhere you want to travel, but just because the food has been so great and you've heard so many awesome things? What's your personal favorite?
I I still have to go with Indian
Yeah,
after trying so many. It's Good Indian food is so labor intensive,
it is.
one of the most labor intensive to cook, and it just takes so much, and you feel that labor when you eat it. You feel
Yes.
how the spices were grinded and everything was mixed and the different components were cooked in
Mm-hmm.
different ways and then blended together at the end. Like, you feel all of that hard work and love that was put into the food. And
Yes.
so I think the complexity of flavor, the richness, and just feeling that labor and the labor intensity of that food is, and feeling the love behind it.
Yeah.
Um, I still can't give you another answer other than Indian for that part of it. So I have to say it's still Indian food, and it's still
Yeah.
particularly South Indian food. Um, and that's not limited to just Kerala. All South Indian foods I
Yes.
enjoy a lot. Um, and in terms of, I think there were a couple of other types of cuisines that I could say I'd like, maybe second or third. I think I alluded to it, but Mexican is up there for me. Um, but I also really, really enjoy Korean food a lot. I love
Mm,
Korean food.
sure.
Um, I like it contrasts a lot with Indian food in many
It
ways.
does. It
Um,
does.
and it makes sense when you consider the geographies. Korea is actually very cold, mountainous
Mm-hmm.
area, and so and it's coastal, so there's a
Yes.
lot of seafood.
Yeah.
There's high spice, but a lot of fermentation, a lot of
Yeah.
fermented vegetables, because of the winter. And yeah, it's just I really like Korean food too. Um, and you can tell some of the preparations, and especially some of the pickled foods they have, are very labor intensive as well in
Mm-hmm.
how they're prepared. I think you had another part to that question though. I lost it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like a perfect segue of that point that you had mentioned about Indian food, right? One of the big things that I am coming across trying to help break it down to people when I talk to them about Indian food is that I'm noticing that a lot of people, when they say they've tried Indian food in an Indian restaurant, a lot of people somehow subconsciously believe that they've tried it all. And India is a country of over a billion people.
Yeah,
Break that down for me. Like, has
yeah,
somebody tried Indian food when they've been to one or two Indian restaurants?
No, no, that's the answer. And the easiest thing, and I actually love talking about this with people because it comes up so often, actually in so
Yes.
many ways too, not
Yeah.
even just in food, but in Indian culture. People think they've seen a small window of Indian culture, they've seen it all.
Yeah.
Just the
Yeah.
easiest thing to think is, before you think that, just imagine that India is like Europe,
Yes.
because India is as diverse, or really even more diverse than Europe. You know, Europe has many different countries. Each country has its own customs, its own language, its own
Hmm.
food, its own traditions, its own calendars, even before they were all Romanized. And so, just like that, India has 29 states. You could say some of the neighboring states are similar, but you would say maybe 16 countries in those
Right.
29 states. You can
Hmm.
easily say India's 16 countries, just,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
Western or Eastern Europe.
Hmm.
And some of those countries have had their own language and customs and foods completely separate from the others for thousands and thousands of years. So you're only getting a very small piece from any one restaurant. You're only getting a very small piece, and almost always in the U.S. you're getting Mughal cuisine. Is
Yes.
is all you're getting, um, and I've known many restaurateurs here that say that's all that sells in America. So that's all.
Yes.
So you're getting Mughal cuisine
Yes.
and a comfort food version of that,
Yeah.
and that's one very specific cuisine. But yeah, the India is as diverse, or if not more diverse, than Europe. And I would say there's just it's even Indians like don't know every single corner
Recipe.
of India, So
Yeah.
for someone else to say that, yeah, you got to look deeper, because they're not
Right.
even not even close. I mean, I can't even say, I know Himalayan cuisine well enough. I've had it, but um, and I know you sent me those momos, which were really good, but I
Yeah.
can't say I've had it enough. I haven't had a lot of food from Assam,
Yeah.
or the Northeast.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so there's just so much. There's just
Hmm.
so much to India, so much to explore.
Right.
Um, you have to kind of, know what you're trying, and know that it's just a piece of the
Yeah.
big puzzle.
I can't tell you how much you read my mind because just right before this, I was doing a different podcast with somebody else, and that's exactly how I described India to them.
Yeah.
I said India is like Europe, and every state is like a different country in Europe with its own
Yes.
language, traditions, and cultures and food. And it's so much true. And honestly, like you and I are both from the south part of